Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, the Australia Institute podcast where we're talking about just what the hell is going on in the economy. I'm Elinor Johnston-Leek, the senior content producer here at the Australia Institute, and as always, I'm talking to our chief economist, Greg Jericho. Hello, Greg.
Hi, Elinor.
How are we going today?
Very good.
It's good to hear. And Greg, just before we get into the questions that I prepared, you told me just before we started that you had something that you wanted to rant about. And seeing how you so rarely get a chance to rant on this podcast, I thought I'd give you the floor. What is on your mind, Greg?
Oh, look, we often talk about what I've written in my column each week, but we won't spend a lot of time on it this week because it's once again on superannuation and superannuation tax changes. But
we've covered that a bit in the last few weeks,
and I wasn't planning to write about it because, again, I've written about it a lot and pointing out how, this is only going to affect a very small percentage of people. Most people don't have more than $3 million in super. Most people have around $200,000 in super, which is a slightly little way from $3 million. But I kind of got energized by a couple media reports this week, one by ABC 730, which talked about a poor farming couple who had a lazy $5.5 million in their super combined, and they were worried that once they got to $6 million, so they had about $3 million each, that they'd have to start paying extra tax. And also there's a wonderful, wonderful column, which we here at the Australia Institute sort of hate read a little bit. In the Sydney Morning Herald, it's their money advice column.
I'm not included in
by
that.
By the wonderful Noel Whittaker, who I'm sure is a wonderful guy. But the columns are always along the lines of, I have squillions of money. How can I avoid paying tax? Please help me. My family are starving. It's like, and this week it was someone who said, we've got to combine $8 million in our self-managed super funds. How can we avoid paying the new super taxes? And it really struck me how not only stuffed our tax system is that, it is a possibility to have that much super and to be able to find ways to avoid paying tax. And the fact that our system is set up so that you can avoid paying tax in order to get $8 million in super. It's almost we're encouraging you to avoid paying tax. But how the media coverage of tax of the economy is so damagingly skewed towards promoting and encouraging wealth inequality.
This has overtaken inheritance tax in my list of the world's worst taxes. And yes, I do have a list in my back of my mind.
The political cost is now the trust issue that you're alluding to. Are you going to apologise to the Australian people?
It's obviously going to cause people to have to sell assets if they don't have the cash.
It'll destroy some people's lives.
Essentially, the headline could have been, I've got $8 million in super and I want to know how to leech on the taxpayers more. I want to bludge off the taxpayers, because that's basically what it is. You'll never, ever see a sob story media article or TV show about someone on JobKeeper struggling to get by and it being presented as though, oh no, they're real Aussie battlers.
Yeah, or someone retiring with not enough in their super.
Not enough. And it's always this sense of, well, they should really just get a good job, or they should work harder, or they should, and you never have advice. For example, I'm on JobKeeper and I've been offered a job. How can I work in this job and avoid losing my JobKeeper? Oh, okay, here are some tips.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
But essentially, that's the type of column we do have for the extremely wealthy. You read the Sydney Morning Herald, read the Fin Review and others, they will consistently have those wealth or money columns where it's advice, and it's always advice about, I've got shed loads of money and I might have to pay some tax. And, for example, the column about the $8 million super, the guy pointed out that, look, if you had $3 million in super, let's say your super went up by $400,000. Under these new arrangements, you're going to have to pay some more tax.
How much more tax?
$7,056. All this whining, all this whinging by the most wealthiest people in Australia, and I don't care whether farmers doing it tough or they are someone living in Double Bay and they've got multi-millions in their super because they've been investing in, lots of great companies and everything. You are extremely wealthy, and yet they are held up as though they're the victims of this. They're the poor ones. And I point out in my column, we've got to flip this damn thing. And so I point out the reason why we don't have dental in Medicare is because we are effectively subsidizing the inheritance of wealthy people. Because even in the ABC story about these farms, they pointed out that actually it's not just for their retirement. They were hoping to be able to use the benefits of these super funds for inheritance for their kids.
Which is not what super is for.
Which is not what super is for. And the reason why whenever you have any story talking about the changes to the superannuation for more than 3 million, there are two types of stories. One is, how do I avoid it? How do I avoid paying tax? And the second one is, this is going to hurt my inheritance for my kids. And it's like, and the reason why they talk about inheritance is because they know they can't actually with a straight face say, I've got more than $3 million in my super. I'm going to struggle to be able to get by in my retirement, because that's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
So they go to inheritance and, this is actually a quasi-inheritance tax. And it's like, no, it's because you're using super in the wrong way. Super, the only reason is to help people have a dignified retirement. And once you get past that, why are we giving you a tax break? And as I've said repeatedly, the tax breaks that go to the richest 10% in Australia for their superannuation cost now around $22 billion a year. If we wanted to put full dental in Medicare, that would cost about $13.5 billion.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's give the richest 10%, instead of $22 billion in tax breaks, let's just give them $8 billion in tax breaks a year.
Yeah. Put dental in Medicare.
And we can still have dental in Medicare, and the budget's no better or worse off.
Sounds great to me.
But the debate is never about that. It's all these poor people with $5 million in their super.
Yeah.
So I had a bit of a rant.
Yep.
Go read it
Go
on
read
my column.
Greg's column in The Guardian if you need more ranting.
I just think we need to, and clearly we try and do that here at the Australian Institute, and we try to do this with this pod, is flip the debate. So it's not always about, if you're mentioning the wealthiest people and how they need to pay more tax, you're hurting ambition or something like that. It's like, no, the reason why we can't have good things is because we are giving tax breaks to people who don't actually need tax breaks.
Very well said. Well, thank you for that rant, Greg.
Across the country, wages are up 3.5% in the last year, about the same as inflation. But top CEO pay jumped twice that.
How much did you make in the last financial year?
Senator, as I said, it's available in our annual report.
I know it's available in your annual report, Mr Banducci, but I'm asking you, in front of a Senate committee, how much you made in the last financial year. I mean, what's your reluctance to disclose that?
Senator, my base salary at Woolworths is $2.6 million. And then I get a short-term bonus and a long-term bonus depending on our performance relative to the metrics I've just talked about on top of that.
All right. And what did that add up to, your total remuneration in the last financial year?
As you would see in our annual report, I think it is $8.4 million in total, Senator.
Well, Greg, our big boss, the Australian Institute Executive Director, Richard Dennis, he wrote an article in The Conversation this week, which was talking about how much CEOs are being paid, specifically when it comes to their performance bonuses. You do see it in the news sometimes, so some CEO got some crazy amount of money in his performance bonus. You would think that means, he or she is performing and that performance is good, kind of in the name. But considering, as we've sort of talked about recently, productivity is in the dumps in Australia, and Australia's public spending on research and development is among the lowest in the OECD. How does this really add up? I'm just going to read directly from Richard's column here. According to new data from the Australian Council of Superannuation Investors, 91% of Australia's top CEOs received some form of performance bonus last year. That elevated their pay well above their base salaries, which were already over $1 million. Only 5 out of 142 eligible for a bonus received 0. So the fact is that almost all of the top CEOs are getting performance bonuses. But is this a bit harsh, Greg? Are all these CEOs actually just earning their bonuses? Are they just doing their best in tough times? Or is something else going on here?
Unsurprisingly, Elinor, I'm going to actually take the side of our boss, Richard Dennis. His column.
Not just because he's our boss.
Not just because he's our boss. Look, the key point that he's making here is, look, in theory, there's nothing wrong with CEOs getting bonuses if it is encouraging the right type of activity, it is encouraging the right type of investment and actually right type of sort of executive work. And, if it's encouraging good investment in things that are actually helping Australia's economy as well as their businesses, if it is because they are encouraging a really strong ethos throughout the company, really ethically based. But what he's pointing out is that the standard that they're required to meet to get these bonuses is actually encouraging bad behavior, bad activities, things that actually probably aren't in the interests of neither the shareholders and definitely not the economy. And he's pointing out, 91% of these CEOs got a bonus. Now, do you really think that 91% of the CEOs of Australia's top companies actually got it right? Like they made, because this is what CEOs do, they kind of make a bet, they make investment choices, they make business decisions that are kind of their belief that it's going to deliver great returns. Do you really think 91% got it right? That's a hell of a good return. 91% of people in a room made a winning decision. It's like, geez, must be really easy running a company. And clearly it's not. So what that means is what enables them to get a bonus is not actually linked to business decisions that actually encourage risk-taking or anything. It's actually things that are geared around just ensuring that your share price goes up, for example, and that actually discourages investment in things that might be a bit risky or might be a bit long-term, and that's a lot of research and development type stuff that takes a while to actually get returns to the company. It's a case of we have a CEO culture in Australia where there is very little punishment and a lot of reward for doing kind of very little.
Yeah. Just circling back to investment in research and development. In his article, Richard talked about research and development in Australia being among the lowest in the OECD. Can you just tell us a bit more about that? Why are we, Australia, doing so badly?
Yeah, it's a really kind of startling issue because we're kind of going in the opposite direction to a lot of other countries. Now, one reason for that, the reason why our research and development has really declined a bit is because it boomed during the mining boom.
Yep.
When mining
boomed.
And mining companies were investing a lot in research and development. Now that they're at the point of just digging stuff out and shipping it off and all that, they're not so concerned about that. So that has declined, and overall that's made our total going. But even if you strip out mining, non-mining research and development is certainly not growing. It's certainly not like the rest of the advanced economies. But what it really comes down to a couple of things. One, look, I'll be frank, we had a decade of Liberal National Coalition who weren't all that interested in investing in research. Research is often, while it's you do look for it in the private sector, it is very much led also by what's happening in universities, and they're publicly funded universities here in Australia, and we haven't been great there. It's a weird thing, research and development worldwide. There is this expectation that businesses won't do it unless there is some sort of taxation benefit to do so.
Yeah.
Which you can kind of understand, because some of these benefits of research and development, it's not all about, we've invented something that we can make squillions of money out of it, and it's things that some of the gains are not going to be deliver great returns for the company, but might have really good applicable use for the overall economy and other businesses and other companies. So it is something you want to encourage, because it generally, as we've said in the past, I think last week, with productivity, best way to improve productivity is to have new equipment that you can use, new way of doing things, new tools, new whatever.
Yep.
And, like something like, we've got Wi-Fi now. And, well, someone had to invent Wi-Fi.
Yeah, someone had to take the financial risk.
Thank you, CSIRO, basically. So that has been an issue. But also it goes to the broader concern of Australia's economy. We are a very simple economy, we'll put it that way, or the more correct term is non-complex, because basically most of our economy is dig shit up and ship it off, or have people come here on a holiday. There's not a lot of complex stuff, not a lot of manufacturing, not a lot of high tech kind of stuff that involves a lot of work that takes in a whole range of activities to actually produce. And generally those economies that have are more complex, generally are more wealthier, generally have more productivity, and generally have more research and development. We're kind of off like a petrostate.
Yeah.
But if you plot, GDP per capita, so how much kind of the income of the country on one axis and complexity of the economy on the other axis, kind of it's a straight line, and the more complex your economy is, the more wealth you have.
Yep.
And there's kind of two that are wealthy but really non-complex, and it's basically Australia and Qatar. We're really kind of off on our little island with Qatar.
What are the dangers in being a non-complex economy?
Yeah, the dangers with that is, well, especially you think of like gas, coal, which are a couple of our major exporters. These are not what you'd call growth sectors. Certainly coal isn't, because of emissions.
Yeah.
And so it's a case of, once that slows down, runs out, what are you left with? And it is also an issue of, if you've just got a really sort of simplistic economy, that means you're very much reliant on a few areas being really good.
Yep.
And if they, for some reason, are not good in 1 year, then your overall economy really suffers. And it also means you're reliant on very small sectors to do most of the investment in research and development and things like that. And that's one of the problems. I saw one report that I think about 3/4 of all of the research and development is done by 3 industries in Australia.
Wow.
It's not very
Do you know
broad.
what those industries are?
Yeah, one was professionals, so professionals and technical services, which you'd expect. Financial services, which is kind of interesting, and I suspect a lot of that is being done into AI and how they can basically get AI to replace
you
people
and I
who work in banks. And manufacturing, But for the rest of the economy, not a lot. Mining now, not a lot. And so overall, it really is this sense of, we're not investing much in research and development. And what does that mean? Well, we're reliant on other countries inventing new stuff or having new equipment that we basically buy from them. And it's like, well, we should be the ones trying to do that. And instead, we've got a culture with our CE bonuses where that type of investment is not being rewarded. And this is Richard's point, is the type of business operations that are rewarded in Australia's corporate sector is stuff that is pretty safe, tried and true will just involve, let's close a few branches, let's see if we can sack a few people.
Yeah.
Let's buy back our own shares rather than use that money, the profit we've got, to invest for future gains or things like that. That's not rewarded. So why would a CEO do it? CEOs aren't here for the good of the company. They're here for the good of themselves. Let's be frank.
Yeah.
They will be for the good of the company if their bonuses and their pay is reflected in things that are good for the long-term thing of the company. So he sort of pointed out, look, we just really have it all a little bit backwards. And, the talk about research and development, we're seeing this right now with productivity. It's all about, government's got to do more, government's got to do things. Yeah, sure, governments should be doing more. But also it's a case of private sector. Have you looked at your own way you're doing things? Maybe switch that up.
Yeah. Greg, talking about the sort of media around the superannuation tax concessions and how that's framed, and then these CEOs getting huge bonuses for, short-sighted thinking. It seems like that we treat people differently in Australia, whether they're at the top or at not the top.
Yeah, I mean, even when it comes to pay rise, you see stories in the Fin Review and the Australian and others about, this guy got a bonus, and it generally is a guy. A CEO got a huge bonus. It's never, this is going to hurt the company profits. And yet if you then see, the workers in a company got a 4% pay rise. That's above inflation. That's, the unions are out of control.
Spiral,
It's always like that. It is the wealthy, the rich, they're lauded for getting a huge bonus. Like, they must have been great. And yet the workers, anytime they get a pay rise that is slightly above inflation, it's like, geez, how can the economy cope with this?
Yeah.
And as I say, same with super. The median super balance of people in their early 60s, close to retirement, is just a smidge over 200,000. And yet we're having so many columns, TV news stories about the fact that people with 3 million in their super might have to get actually less of a tax break.
Yeah, they still get a tax break.
They still get a tax break.
But less of a tax break.
Less of a tax break. And it's pain as how, this
Think
is
of
going
the children.
this is going to ruin our economy. All the rich people going to flee. And it's like, no, they're not. They don't, but the problem is this becomes that broader thing of, I can't think of very few public policy things that would be more popular than dental and Medicare. So why don't we have it? Because here we got a government trying to just do the smallest of small changes to superannuation, and even the ABC are running sob stories about how people might be affected. And it's like, you can't say that the government should be more bold and everything if you're also at the same time criticising them whenever they're doing anything slightly bold. And that's why certainly here at the Australian Institute, we have our issues with the government on many, many things.
Yep.
But we're certainly backing them in on superannuation because, one, our research supports it very much so. We think it's a good start. But also it's a case of, okay, it's not perfect. We'd want more, but hey, this is a good start. So it's very much why we support these changes, because you gotta be there when a government is trying to do good things. You got to be there and support them. You can't just sit back and go, you should do more. That's not helpful, and it's not healthy for our democracy. It's certainly not going to help inequality. So there's lots more to do. This is a good start, and hopefully all the people listening to this podcast, those who support the Australian Institute, know that this is what we're trying to do to change this conversation and make it about actually the reality of life, not about, rich people, gee, they're doing great. We need, they're the backbone of this country.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Greg.
Thank you, Elinor. Thank you for letting me have a rant.
Oh, as always.
We'll have to leave it there, but we will be back with another Dollars and Cents next week. This episode, though, was recorded on the 26th of June, and some things may have changed. You can read all about my ranting about why we can't have nice things in The Guardian Australia. And if you want to read all of the research that we do here at the Australian Students, including some really good stuff that's just come out this week about how nearly a quarter of the seats in federal parliament are now what we call non-classical seats, where a crossbencher or an independent is either coming first or second. So it's very much shifting away from it always being ALP versus LNP. Very interesting research there. Check that out on our website, which is at australiainstitute.org.au. Music, as always, is by Blue Dot Sessions. Everyone, have a great week, and we'll see you all next week.
See ya.